If you've seen anything on this channel, you'll know that I like hats a lot. I play a lot of blues and roots type of music, and I like to look like what I'm playing. So I want to talk about how hats of a particular style became associated with blues music. Just do a Google image search of the words blues artist and you'll find no shortage of people wearing hats, especially fedoras. So this is just going to be a quick little interesting history lesson, and I'm going to talk about the hat that I'm wearing today. The first thing you need to know is that during the first half of the 20th century, hats weren't just an occasional fashion accessory, they were pretty ubiquitous. That rule applied to every strata of society, and only the brokest people didn't have a hat, and that was true up until the 1950s. Hats were a big thing with women too. This hat belonged to my great-grandmother in the 1940s. And people were wearing all different kinds of styles. You had flat caps, you had bowler hats, you had Homburgs, you had fedoras, and of course styles changed over the years. And early blues musicians who existed back then were men of their time. The pictures you can find of early blues musicians will often show their headgear, and they run the gamut of the popular styles of that day. There was no signature hat for bluesmen back then. You've got Skip James wearing his straw hat like he's about to audition for a barbershop quartet. You've got Willie McTell wearing a flat cap. You've got Robert Johnson wearing a fedora. And fedoras are really the one we have to talk about, because the fedora hat is the hat that's most associated with blues music today. Fedoras have been around since the late 19th century, and they were originally popular with women after Sarah Bernhardt wore one in a play called Fedora. They became especially popular with suffragettes who were campaigning for voting rights for women in the late 19th, early 20th century. It wasn't until the 1920s that fedoras became popular with men, and they were extremely popular from the 30s and 40s through the 50s. And of course, this is when most early blues music was being recorded. But as far as music goes, during this time they were more associated with jazz musicians. In the 50s, hat wearing started to decline and blues artists were going hatless like everybody else. So the question is, how did they become associated with blues music? When blues music underwent a revival in the 1960s, a lot of the older blues artists were being brought back to light, and they often acted like guys from the 30s and put their hats on. They were choosing fedoras a lot because that was the fashionable hat of their day. So this image of an old blues singer in a fedora started to come together. By the 70s, John Lee Hooker was hatted up, and it was his hat wearing that inspired a young comedic actor named Dan Aykroyd, who was putting a blues band together. It was the Blues Brothers movie that really set in stone the stereotypical image of a blues singer, and they were wearing trilby style fedoras, of course. And that brings us to the modern era, where it's become part of the aesthetic of blues music. Not everybody who plays the blues does the hat, but I like to think it keeps me from getting too many Nickelback requests, and it really helps to look the part of the genre that you're playing. I still get stupid requests, by the way. It also gives me a place to stuff my hair, and I have a lot of it, and it looks good on me as a musician. When I walk into a new venue, the people there can usually tell that I'm with the band. And let me tell you about the hat I'm wearing here. This is a new one I got, a fedora style hat, and it's called the Jawa from American Hat Makers. They were nice enough to send this to me. It's a stiff felt hat. It's got a nice wide brim on it, slightly upturned, so it almost gets into cowboy territory, which is what I like. But what I really like about this hat is it's got this Velcro deal hidden inside of here where you can actually adjust the size of it. I've never dared to get a hat online until now because you just never know how they're gonna fit, and now I don't have to worry about that. And just for good measure, they also send you these adhesive resizing pads that you can use just in case you need them. This hat comes in black and brown, and they make them for men and women. So if you visit American Hat Makers through my affiliate link below and pick up this hat or any hat, it'll actually support this channel. If you enjoy the content on this channel, please consider checking out my country blues album. I've also got a Patreon you can sign up for. I've got a PayPal, all that's linked below. I also have a link to the Cornbread and Buttermilk podcast. They gave me a shout out recently and featured some of my music, and they talk about food and cooking in the deep south where I'm from, so go check them out. And please like, subscribe, and share.